The crystalline halls of Orion Prime's royal palace stretched endlessly before Empress Selene Ardent, each surface reflecting her solitary figure 1,000 times over. Outside the transparent aluminum walls, the vast expanse of space twinkled with distant stars and the occasional passing freighter, their navigation lights blinking like fireflies against the cosmic darkness. Today marked her 29th birthday, though one would never know it from the oppressive silence that filled her private chambers. Selene adjusted the neural interface crown on her temples, the delicate circuitry humming softly as it connected to her hover chair's propulsion systems. 3 years had passed since the assassination attempt that left her paralyzed from the waist down. 3 years since she'd last felt the deck plates beneath her feet or the rush of acceleration in a fighter cockpit. The irony wasn't lost on her that the youngest empress in Galactic Alliance history, once celebrated as the Phoenix of Andromeda for her legendary piloting skills, now couldn't even stand to greet her own birthday guests. Not that there were many genuine well-wishers among the gathering aristocracy. Through the holographic displays floating before her, she watched the grand ballroom filling with alien dignitaries and noble houses, their elaborate costumes shimmering with bioluminescent fabrics and gravity-defying accessories. The Zalathi delegation glided across the floor on their tentacles, leaving trails of phosphorescent slime that self-cleaning nanobots immediately absorbed. The crystalline Vormac representatives chimed with each movement, their bodies refracting light into rainbow patterns, and scattered among them, like outcasts at their own party, were the few human diplomats brave enough to attend. Humanity's position in the Galactic Alliance remained precarious at best. Despite contributing innovative technologies and fresh perspectives to the ancient Confederation, humans were still viewed as primitive newcomers, barely 2 centuries into their spacefaring era. The fact that a half-human woman occupied the imperial throne only deepened the resentment among the old guard. Selene's mother had been human, a diplomatic attaché who captured the heart of Emperor Cassius Ardent during first contact negotiations. Their union had been scandalous enough, but when their daughter displayed an unprecedented aptitude for both human intuition and Altarian strategic thinking, the establishment's concern transformed into barely concealed hostility. Her father's death 5 years ago had thrust her onto the throne at 24, and the assassination attempt came shortly after. "Your Majesty," the voice of her aide, Theron, emanated from the communication panel. The elderly Altarian had served 3 generations of rulers, his loyalty unquestionable, even as his forearms trembled with age. "The High Council requests your presence in the ballroom. Lord Kaelor insists the celebration cannot properly commence without you." Lord Kaelor. The name alone made her jaw clench. The draconian noble commanded significant influence among the conservative faction, his scaled hide and predatory eyes a constant reminder of the old empire's brutal efficiency. He'd been particularly vocal about her unfortunate condition, making her unfit to rule, though always careful to couch his criticism in concerns for the empire's stability. "Tell Lord Kaelor I'll attend when I'm ready," Selene replied, her voice carrying the steel that had once commanded entire fleet formations. "The Empire has waited 29 years for this particular birthday. A few more minutes won't cause its collapse." "Of course, Your Majesty." Theron's tone carried a hint of amusement. "Though I should mention, the kitchen staff has outdone themselves with the molecular gastronomy displays. The dessert sculpture of your victory at Kepler Station is particularly impressive, complete with edible holograms of exploding enemy vessels." Despite herself, Selene smiled. "Save me a piece of my own exploding command ship. I'm curious what defeat tastes like." "I believe the chef used bitter dark matter chocolate for that particular element." "How appropriate." After Theron signed off, Selene guided her hover chair to the vast window overlooking the station's industrial sector. Down there, among the maze of conduits and maintenance tunnels, life continued without pretense or politics. Engineers and technicians from dozens of species worked side by side, their focus on keeping the massive station operational rather than maintaining ancestral prejudices. She envied them their simple purpose. A soft chime indicated someone approaching her private chambers. The security system identified the visitor as Commander Rayla, her head of security and one of the few people she trusted implicitly. The Andromedan warrior entered, her blue-tinted skin gleaming under the ambient lighting. "Forgive the intrusion, Majesty," Rayla said, her 6 fingers dancing across a tactical pad. "We've detected an anomaly in Section 8 of the Maintenance District. A small explosion in the primary coolant systems. Nothing serious, but it triggered a temporary lockdown of the area. Sabotage." Celine's mind immediately jumped to worst-case scenarios. Unlikely. Preliminary scans suggest a simple technical malfunction. A human maintenance crew was working in the area. One of them apparently cross-wired a coupling, causing a minor plasma discharge. "Human crew," Celine raised an eyebrow. "I wasn't aware we employed human technicians in critical systems. We've had difficulty maintaining full staff with qualified Alliance engineers," Rayla admitted. "The human workers have proven remarkably adaptable, even if their methods are somewhat unorthodox. This particular technician, Orion Kane, actually prevented a much larger cascade failure last month, though his approach involved what he called percussive maintenance. He fixed advanced alien technology by hitting it with a wrench. Yes. The Zalathi engineers are still trying to understand why it worked." Celine found herself genuinely laughing for the first time in weeks. "And this Orion Kane caused today's explosion?" "Indirectly. His daughter was visiting him during his shift, apparently bringing him lunch. She pressed something she shouldn't have while he was distracted." "His daughter children aren't permitted in the maintenance sectors." "No, Majesty, they are not. Security is already moving to escort them out and process the appropriate sanctions." Celine turned her chair to face Rayla fully. "How old is the child?" 8 standard years, according to records." 8 years old. Celine remembered being that age, running through these same halls while her father attended to imperial duties, finding adventure in every corner and driving the palace staff to distraction. Before she could respond, another alarm chimed, this one from the palace's internal security. "What now?" Celine muttered. Rayla's expression shifted to concern as she read the update. "The lockdown malfunction has caused a navigation error. The maintenance crew and the child have accidentally entered the palace restricted zone. They're in the Royal Arboretum." The Royal Arboretum. Celine's private sanctuary, where she went to escape the suffocating demands of rule. The one place in the entire station where she could pretend, if only briefly, that she was just another person among the imported earth roses and Altarian crystal flowers. "Stand down, security," Celine commanded suddenly. "Majesty, I'll handle this personally. I'm tired of sitting in here like a porcelain doll waiting to be displayed. Besides, I'm curious to meet the human who fixes alien technology with percussion." Before Rayla could protest, Celine was already guiding her hover chair toward the private lift that connected her chambers to the Arboretum. The chair's anti-gravity generators hummed as they compensated for her sudden acceleration, the neural interface translating her thoughts into smooth motion. The Arboretum doors whispered open, revealing a wonderland of bioluminescent plants and impossible flowers that bloomed in zero-gravity pockets. The air hummed with the songs of various atmospheric processors designed to recreate 100 different worlds' environments. And there, in the center of it all, stood the unlikely intruders. Orion Kane looked exactly as Celine had imagined a human maintenance worker would look. His coveralls bore the stains of a dozen different mechanical fluids, creating an abstract art piece that told the story of his daily battles with entropy. His hair was disheveled, his face bore a day's worth of stubble, and his hands were calloused from honest work. He stood protectively in front of a small girl who was practically vibrating with excitement as she stared at the exotic plants. "Daddy, look!" the child exclaimed, pointing at a cluster of singing crystals from Harmony 7. "They're making music." "Arya, honey, don't touch anything else," Orion said, his voice a mixture of paternal concern and barely controlled panic. "We're already in enough trouble. This place probably costs more than Earth's entire GDP. "Actually, it costs considerably more," Celine announced, guiding her chair into view. "The singing crystals alone required an entire diplomatic mission to acquire." Orion spun around, his eyes widening as he recognized her. His first instinct was clearly to bow or kneel, but uncertainty about the proper protocol left him frozen in an awkward half-crouch. Arya, however, showed no such hesitation. "You're floating," the girl exclaimed with delight. "That's the coolest chair ever. Does it go fast? Can it fly? Oh, wow. You're pretty. Are you a princess?" "Arya." Orion's face flushed red as he grabbed his daughter's hand. "Your Majesty, I'm so sorry. We didn't mean to. There was an explosion, and the doors malfunctioned, and we got lost. And you thought you'd take a detour through my private garden." Celine kept her voice stern, though she fought to suppress a smile at the girl's enthusiasm. "The maintenance tunnel led here," Orion explained, his hand still protectively holding Arya's. "The automated systems kept redirecting us. I tried to override them, but your palace AI is a bit more sophisticated than the usual systems I work with. Yet you fixed a critical system failure last month using percussive maintenance." His eyes widened further. "You heard about that?" "I hear about everything that happens on my station, Mr. Kane, including unauthorized children in restricted areas." Arya tugged on her father's coveralls. "Are we in trouble? I didn't mean to cause the explosion. I just wanted to see where Daddy works. And the button was so shiny. And—" The girl's voice trailed off as she noticed the hover chair properly, for the first time. Her expression shifted from worry to fascination. "Why do you use a floating chair? Can't you walk?" "Arya." Orion's mortification deepened. "You can't ask that?" But Celine found herself oddly touched by the child's directness. After years of polite circumspection and veiled references to her condition, the honest curiosity was refreshing. "No, I can't walk," she said simply. "My legs don't work anymore." "Why?" Arya asked with the blunt innocence only children possessed. "Someone hurt me very badly a few years ago." "That's mean," Arya's face scrunched up in indignation. "Did you hurt them back?" "Not yet," Celine replied, surprised by her own honesty. "Daddy says hitting people is wrong. But he also says bullies need to be stood up to," Arya said sagely. "Maybe you could use a wrench like he does on the machines." Orion looked like he wanted the deck plates to open and swallow him whole. "Your Majesty, I sincerely apologize for everything. My daughter, she doesn't understand." "On the contrary, Mr. Kane, your daughter understands perfectly." Celine moved her chair closer, studying the unlikely pair. "Tell me, how does a human engineer end up maintaining critical systems on the Imperial Station?" "I was part of the exchange program 5 years ago," Orion explained, relaxing slightly as he shifted to technical matters. "Humans might be new to galactic technology, but we have a knack for improvisation. When standard procedures fail, sometimes you need someone willing to think outside the quantum box. Or hit things with wrenches." "That too." A ghost of a smile crossed his features, though I prefer to call it kinetic recalibration. "I'm hungry," Arya announced suddenly, reminding both adults of her presence. "Daddy, I dropped our lunch when the explosion happened." "We'll get something from the vending units later, sweetheart." Vending units. Celine found herself oddly offended. "On your daughter's first visit to the palace, it's not exactly like we can walk into the royal dining hall," Orion pointed out. "Why not?" Celine challenged. "I'm the Empress. Am I not if I choose to invite guests to dine? Who's going to stop me?" "The entire High Council. Most of the aristocracy, and probably half your security staff, Orion said dryly, then caught himself. You mean exactly what you said. Celine was delighted by his candor. When was the last time someone spoke to you without calculating every word for political advantage? About 8 years ago, she admitted. Just before Arya was born. Actually, my wife. She never cared about titles or protocol. She just saw people for who they were. The past tense wasn't lost on Celine. She passed. During childbirth, complications from the artificial gravity. Human physiology doesn't always adapt well to space station conditions. His arm tightened protectively around Arya. But she gave me the greatest gift first. Daddy says Mommy became stars, Arya piped up. That's why I wanted to work in space too, to be closer to her. Celine felt something crack in her chest. A wall she'd built around her heart since the assassination attempt. These two humans, covered in grease and completely out of place in her crystalline palace, had shown more genuine emotion in 5 minutes than she'd experienced in 3 years of royal functions. Well then, she said, making a decision that would undoubtedly cause political ripples. We can't have you going hungry on your mother's birthday. Can we? It's not Mommy's birthday, Arya corrected. It's yours. The screens outside said so. Happy birthday, floating lady. Please don't call the Empress floating lady, Orion groaned. I rather like it, Celine said. It's certainly more original than Your Majesty or Imperial Highness. Tell me, Arya, what do you usually do for birthdays? We make cake and sing songs and Daddy tells stories about Mommy and Earth and sometimes we watch the old videos of the blue oceans. Arya's enthusiasm was infectious. Do you have cake? Hundreds of them. I'm told, molecular gastronomy sculptures that cost more than a small spacecraft. But do they taste good? Celine realized she had no idea. She hadn't actually tasted any of her birthday celebrations in years, too focused on the political theater to enjoy the actual food. Why don't we find out, she suggested. Though I should warn you, we'll have to attend the formal celebration. There will be a lot of very boring people saying very boring things. That's okay, Arya said brightly. Daddy's good at making boring things fun. He tells jokes to the machines while he fixes them. The machines don't laugh, Orion added. That's why they need fixing, Arya explained with perfect child logic. Celine laughed, really laughed, for the second time that day. Well then, Mr. Kane, I hereby formally invite you and your daughter to attend the Imperial birthday celebration as my personal guests. Your Majesty, we couldn't. Look at us. He gestured to their stained work clothes. Yes, let's look at you, Celine said thoughtfully. A human who keeps this station running through innovation and determination, and a child who brings joy simply by existing. You're worth a dozen Lord Kaelors in their pristine ceremonial robes. Who's Lord Kaelor? Arya asked. A very silly man who thinks being born with scales makes him special, Celine replied. That is silly, Arya agreed. Daddy says what makes people special is what they do, not what they look like. Your daddy sounds very wise. He can fix anything, even the coffee machine that the Zalathi engineers said was impossible to repair. That coffee machine was possessed, Orion muttered. I swear it was actively trying to not work. And yet you fixed it with percussive maintenance. Actually, that one required what I call aggressive negotiation. I threatened to replace it with a human model that only made instant coffee. And it started working. Immediately, I think it was offended by the suggestion. Celine shook her head in amazement. The palace AIs were temperamental, but a coffee machine with pride, only a human would think to negotiate with appliances. A urgent chime from her neural interface interrupted the moment. Rayla's voice echoed in her mind through the secure channel. Majesty, Lord Kaelor is demanding your immediate presence. He's threatening to motion for a competency hearing if you don't attend your own celebration. The warmth Celine had been feeling curdled into cold anger. A competency hearing, on her birthday, because she was 5 minutes late to her own party. The vultures were circling closer. "Is everything okay?" Orion asked, noticing her expression change. "Just politics," Celine replied. "The price of power is eternal irritation. It seems—" "Sounds like fixing the waste recycling systems," Orion said. "No matter how well you do the job, someone's always complaining about the smell." Despite her anger, Celine smiled. "That's the most accurate description of imperial rule I've ever heard." She made a decision then, one that would either strengthen her position or destroy it entirely. But looking at Arya's innocent excitement and Orion's genuine concern, she realized she was tired of playing it safe. The assassination attempt had taken her legs, but she'd let fear take everything else. "Mr. Kane, Arya, how would you like to help me with something?" "Like a mission." Arya's eyes went wide. "Exactly like a mission. You see, the people at my party expect me to be proper and imperial and boring. But it's my birthday, and I think birthdays should be fun. So I need some experts in making boring things interesting." "We can do that," Arya bounced excitedly. "Daddy, tell her about the time you made the Vormak laugh." "Vormak don't have a sense of humor," Celine said. "That's what everyone said," Orion replied with a grin. "But it turns out they do appreciate slapstick, especially when it involves Zolothi slipping on their own secretions." "You didn't—" "I might have accidentally arranged for a small environmental control malfunction that made the deck extra slippery, just as Ambassador Zrix was practicing his dramatic entrance." "That was you," Celine gasped. "That incident nearly caused a diplomatic crisis." But it didn't, because even Zrix couldn't stop his crystalline body from chiming with laughter when he watched the replay. Turns out, even uptight aliens appreciate physical comedy. Celine's neural interface chimed again, more urgently. She could feel the growing agitation from the ballroom through the station's emotional sensors, a feature of the palace designed to help rulers gauge the mood of gatherings. "They're getting impatient," she said. "Then, let's not keep them waiting," Orion said, surprising her with his sudden confidence. "But maybe we should stop by maintenance first. I've got something that might help." "Help with what?" "Making an entrance they'll never forget. You said it's your birthday." "Right. Well, birthdays need presents. And I happen to have something that might interest an empress who used to be a pilot." Celine's curiosity piqued. "What kind of something?" "Let's just say the explosion earlier wasn't entirely an accident. I've been working on a project in my spare time. Something I thought might— well, it doesn't matter what I thought. But it's yours if you want it." "Daddy's been building it for months," Arya added. "He won't tell me what it is, but he works on it every night after I go to sleep." "Now I'm definitely intrigued," Celine said. "Lead the way, Mr. Kane." As they left the Arboretum, Celine couldn't shake the feeling that this chance encounter was about to change everything. For 3 years, she'd been the wounded empress, ruling from the shadows of her disability. But something about these two humans, with their honest faces and grease-stained clothes, made her remember who she used to be. The Phoenix of Andromeda, they'd called her. The pilot who could make a fighter dance through asteroid fields like it was waltzing. That woman had been fearless, taking on impossible odds with a laugh and a prayer to the stars. Maybe it was time for the Phoenix to rise again. The maintenance sector of Orion Prime was a different world entirely from the crystalline elegance of the palace. Here, exposed conduits snaked along walls like mechanical veins, and the air carried the perpetual scent of ozone and machine oil. Celine's hover chair drew curious stares from the workers they passed. A mixture of species united in their surprise at seeing their empress in the grimy depths of the station. "Your Majesty shouldn't be down here," a Zolothi engineer gurgled through his translation collar, his tentacles writhing in distress. "The environmental conditions are not suitable for a crippled ruler," Celine finished, her tone sharp enough to cut steel. "I assure you, My lungs still function perfectly well. The engineer retreated, leaving trails of anxious secretion that a cleaning bot immediately pursued. Orion glanced at her sideways as they continued through the maze of corridors. You enjoy making them uncomfortable, he observed. They make themselves uncomfortable, Celine corrected. I simply exist in their presence. That's a lonely way to exist. The directness of his statement caught her off guard. Before she could respond, Arya tugged on her father's sleeve. Daddy, are we almost there? I want to show the Empress your secret project. It's just around this corner, Orion said, palming a security panel that somehow recognized his biosignature, despite the layers of grease on his hands. And remember, it's not finished yet. I've been working on it for almost a year, but the neural interface components are incredibly delicate. The door slid open to reveal a private workshop that looked like organized chaos. Tools from a dozen different worlds hung on magnetic strips, while half-assembled devices covered every available surface. But what drew Celine's attention was the object suspended in the center of the room by anti-gravity clamps. It was an exoskeleton, but unlike any she'd seen before. The frame combined human engineering pragmatism with stolen glimpses of advanced alien technology. Instead of the bulky, militaristic designs favored by the Alliance forces, this was elegant, almost organic in its flowing lines. Neural interface nodes glowed softly along what would be the spine, while synthetic muscle fibers woven from carbon nanotubes and quantum filaments promised both strength and flexibility. You built this, Celine breathed, guiding her chair closer. I've been studying your old flight suits, Orion admitted, rubbing the back of his neck nervously. The ones from before. Well, before. Every pilot has a unique neural signature, and yours is particularly well documented. The Phoenix of Andromeda's flight patterns were required study at the Engineering Academy. You studied my combat records? Everyone did. The way you flew defied conventional physics. The Altarian generals claimed it was your mixed heritage, the combination of human intuition and alien processing power. But I think it was something more. He moved to a console, pulling up holographic displays of her famous battles. You didn't just pilot those ships. You became them. Celine watched her younger self execute an impossible corkscrew maneuver through an asteroid field. Enemy fire, missing by millimeters. She remembered that moment, the feeling of absolute unity with her fighter, where thought and action became one. The assassination attempt damaged your spinal cord, Orion continued, his voice gentle. But your neural pathways, the ones that made you such an exceptional pilot, those are still intact. They're just disconnected. Many have tried to build me mobility assists, Celine said quietly. The best doctors in the Alliance. We're trying to fix you, Orion interrupted. I'm not trying to fix anything. I'm trying to build a bridge. This exoskeleton doesn't replace your nervous system. It translates it. Every neural impulse that can't reach your legs gets rerouted through quantum processors and converted into movement. It's like teaching your brain a new language, Arya chimed in, climbing onto a workbench to get a better view. Daddy explained it to me. Instead of saying walk in nerve speak, you say it in computer speak. That's surprisingly accurate, Celine said, smiling at the child's enthusiasm. The problem is calibration, Orion admitted. Without access to your specific neural patterns. I've been working with theoretical models. It would need direct interface testing to actually function, and that would require me trusting a human mechanic with experimental technology that interfaces directly with my brain. Celine finished. When you put it like that, it sounds completely insane. Daddy's insane ideas usually work, Arya offered helpfully. Remember the time he fixed the gravity generator by reversing the polarity and feeding it chocolate? That was an accident, Orion protested. The chocolate was my lunch. It melted into the circuits and somehow created a perfect conductor. You're telling me chocolate fixed a gravity generator? Dark chocolate, specifically, 70% cacao. The theobromine molecules apparently have an unexpected interaction with trilithium circuits. Celine found herself laughing again. And this is the man who wants to wire my brain to an experimental exoskeleton. When you put it like that, Orion started. When I put it like that, it sounds like exactly the kind of insane plan that might actually work. Celine made a decision that would have sent her medical team into cardiac arrest. How long would the calibration take? You're serious. Mr. Kane, in approximately... She checked her neural interface's chronometer. 20 minutes. I have to face a room full of politicians who think my inability to walk makes me unfit to rule. Lord Kaylor has been building a case for my removal for 3 years. So, yes, I'm serious about trying anything that might let me walk into that room under my own power. Orion's eyes widened. 20 minutes, Celine. Your Majesty, even if the interface works perfectly, learning to use it would take weeks of practice. I learned to fly a fighter in 3 hours. That's impossible. That's what the instructor said too. She moved her chair to the exoskeleton, studying its design more carefully. Your neural bridge concept, it works both ways, doesn't it? Not just sending signals out, but receiving feedback. Theoretically, yes. The synthetic muscles have pressure sensors that would communicate back through the interface. You'd actually feel. I'd feel my legs again. The words came out as barely a whisper. For 3 years, she'd lived with the absence, the phantom sensations of limbs that no longer responded. The possibility of sensation, even artificial, was almost too much to hope for. Daddy, Arya said quietly, the Empress is crying. Celine touched her face, surprised to find tears. When had she started crying? I'm sorry, I... Don't apologize, Orion said firmly. Never apologize for feeling. He moved to the exoskeleton, running his hands along its frame with the familiarity of a creator. If we're going to do this, we need to do it now. The initial calibration will be intense. Your brain has to learn an entirely new way of communicating with your body. What do you need from me? Trust, he said simply. Complete, absolute trust. The neural interface will need full access to your motor cortex. You'll be more vulnerable than you've ever been. I haven't trusted anyone completely in 3 years, Celine admitted. Then why start now? She looked at him. This grease-stained human with his impossible ideas and percussive maintenance solutions. Then at Arya, whose innocent faith in her father's abilities was absolute. Because you don't want anything from me, she realized. You built this without expecting to ever give it to me. You built it because the galaxy lost something when you stopped flying. Orion finished. I watched your last flight, right before the assassination. You were poetry in motion. Then some coward with a poison blade took that away, and the universe became a little less beautiful. Daddy's romantic, Arya stage whispered. Mommy said that's why she married him. Arya, not now, Orion muttered, his face reddening. But it's true you said the Empress was like a dancer in the stars, and that it wasn't fair she couldn't dance anymore. And that's why you stayed up all those nights building. Okay, that's enough helping from the peanut gallery, Orion said, covering his daughter's mouth gently. Celine felt something shift in her chest, that crack in her emotional armor widening further. This man had spent a year of his life building something on the impossible chance it might help her. Not for reward or recognition, but because he thought the universe was less beautiful without her flying. Do it, she said. Connect the interface. Orion hesitated. Your Majesty, I should warn you. The initial connection will be overwhelming. Every dormant nerve ending will fire at once. It will hurt. I've been in pain for 3 years. Mr. Kane, physical pain will be a refreshing change from the emotional variety. He nodded, moving to prepare the exoskeleton. Arya, I need you to monitor the quantum processors. Remember what I taught you about the resonance frequencies. Keep them between blue and green. Never let them go red, Arya recited. taking her position at a console with surprising professionalism. Your daughter assists you with quantum engineering. She has an intuitive understanding of harmonics, Orion explained, helping Celine position her hover chair next to the exoskeleton. Children see patterns adults miss. She once solved a problem that had stumped me for days by pointing out that the energy flow looked sad. It did look sad, Arya insisted. It was all droopy and purple. The exoskeleton's frame opened, like a mechanical flower, revealing the interior padding designed to interface with a human form. Orion helped Celine transfer from her hover chair, his movements surprisingly gentle for someone used to wrestling with machinery. The neural crown will connect first, he explained, fitting a delicate circlet over her existing interface. Then the spinal nodes, working down to the leg actuators. When I activate the system, you'll need to focus on remembering what walking felt like. The more vivid the memory, the better the calibration. I dream about walking every night, Celine admitted. I remember everything. Good. Hold on to those memories. Let them guide the interface. He moved to the control console, fingers dancing across holographic displays. Arya, how are the quantum processors? Happily blue, she reported. Your Majesty, are you ready? Celine closed her eyes, summoning every memory of movement she'd treasured. The first time she'd run through the palace gardens as a child, her first flight, the exhilaration of defying gravity, the victory dance she'd performed after surviving Kepler Station. Do it. Orion activated the interface. Pain exploded through her body, but not the sharp agony she'd expected. This was like lightning made of memories, every nerve ending suddenly remembering what it had lost. She gasped, her back arching as the exoskeleton's synthetic muscles began synchronizing with her neural patterns. Processors going yellow, Arya called out. It's okay. Let them spike, Orion said, his hands flying across controls. She's strong. Look at these neural readings. She's actually overdriving the system. Celine felt it then, beneath the chaos of sensation. Her legs, not the dead weight she'd carried for 3 years, but presence, pressure, the texture of the exoskeleton's interior against skin she'd thought would never feel again. Try to move, Orion encouraged. Start small, just your toes. She focused, remembering the simple act of flexing her feet. The exoskeleton responded, synthetic muscles contracting with a whisper of movement. It's working, Arya squealed. Daddy, it's working! Don't celebrate yet, Orion warned, though his own excitement was evident. Your Majesty, can you feel the feedback? I can feel everything, Celine breathed. It's like they're asleep, like pins and needles. But they're there. That's the synthetic nerves integrating with your sensory cortex. The tingling will fade as your brain adapts. Try standing. Standing, such a simple thing that everyone took for granted. Celine had been a warrior, a pilot, a dancer of the void. Now she struggled with the basic act of putting weight on legs that weren't quite real, but weren't quite artificial either. The exoskeleton supported her, responding to her uncertain neural commands with mechanical precision. She rose, wobbling like a newborn. But she rose. I'm standing, she whispered, then louder. I'm standing. Processors holding steady in green, Arya announced proudly. Orion moved closer, ready to catch her if she fell. How does it feel? Like learning to exist again, Celine said, taking an experimental step. The exoskeleton translated her intention into movement. Not perfectly, but enough. It's not the same, but it's movement, Orion finished. And with practice, it will become natural. The quantum processors learn from your neural patterns. The more you use it, the more intuitive it becomes. Daddy, we're going to be late for the party, Arya reminded them. The party. Lord Kaelor. The competency hearing threat. For a moment, Celine had forgotten everything except the miracle of standing on her own. "Can I walk in this?" she asked. "You can do more than walk," Orion said with a grin. "The synthetic muscles are rated for acceleration up to 15 standard gravities. You could run, jump, even dance if you wanted. Though I wouldn't recommend testing the limits immediately. What about appearances? I can't exactly attend a formal celebration in an experimental exoskeleton." Actually, Orion moved to a storage unit, pulling out what looked like formal attire. "I took the liberty of designing an outer shell. It's just aesthetic, but it should cover the mechanical components." The outer shell was elegant, crafted from a material that seemed to shift between colors like oil on water. When fitted over the exoskeleton, it created the illusion of a form-fitting dress that moved with liquid grace. "You designed a dress?" Celine asked, amazed. "Aria helped. She said princesses need pretty dresses, even if they're made of quantum fabric and powered by fusion cells." "It sparkles," Aria added proudly. "I chose the sparkly bits." Celine looked at herself in the workshop's reflective surfaces. The woman looking back stood tall, the dress disguising the exoskeleton's mechanical nature while allowing for full range of movement. She looked like an empress again, not a broken bird in a gilded cage. "This is incredible," she said, taking another experimental step. The movement was becoming more natural already, her brain adapting with the speed that had once made her a legendary pilot. "But won't Lord Kaelor notice?" "Let him," Orion said firmly. "You're walking under your own power. If he has a problem with the method, he can discuss it with my wrench." "Daddy doesn't really hit people," Aria clarified, "but he's very good at looking scary when he needs to." A communication ping interrupted them. Rayla's voice, tight with concern, echoed through Celine's neural interface. "Majesty, Lord Kaelor is mobilizing the High Council. If you don't appear within 5 minutes, he's calling for an immediate vote of no confidence." "Then we'd better make an entrance worth the wait," Celine said, surprising herself with her own confidence. She looked at Orion and Aria. "You two still willing to be my backup?" "We're your backup dancers," Aria exclaimed. "Wait, are we actually going to dance?" "Maybe," Celine said, feeling reckless. "Your father did say this exoskeleton could handle it." "I said it could theoretically handle it," Orion corrected nervously. "I haven't exactly tested the rhythmic movement parameters." "Then we'll test them together." Celine took another step, this one steadier. "After all, what's a birthday party without a little dancing?" She made her way to the workshop door, each step becoming more confident as the neural bridge strengthened. Behind her, Orion and Aria exchanged glances. "Daddy, I think we might have accidentally started a revolution," Aria whispered. "I think you might be right," Orion replied, watching the Empress walk for the first time in 3 years. "Question is, are we ready for what comes next?" The answer came as Celine turned back to them, her face showing a determination that had been missing for far too long. "The Phoenix of Andromeda is about to remind the galaxy why they used to fear her name. Are you coming?" They followed her out of the workshop, through the maintenance tunnels, and toward the palace proper. Workers stopped and stared as their Empress passed, walking tall, despite the slight uncertainty in her gait. Word spread through the station's networks like wildfire the Empress was walking. By the time they reached the ballroom service entrance, a crowd had gathered. Celine could hear the commotion inside, Lord Kaelor's voice rising above the rest as he demanded action be taken against an obviously incompetent ruler who can't even attend her own celebration. "Your Majesty!" Rayla appeared from the shadows, her warrior's eyes widening as she saw Celine standing. "How?" "Human engineering and a child's faith," Celine replied. "Sometimes the impossible just needs the right kind of insanity. Lord Kaelor has poisoned half the council against you. He's claiming your absence proves you're unfit, that your human blood makes you weak." "Then let's show them what human blood can do," Celine said. She looked at Orion. That offer to make boring things interesting still stands." He grinned, the expression transforming his grease-stained face. "Always. Arya, remember what we practiced for the school talent show? The one where we made everyone laugh." "That's the one." "But Daddy, these are important aliens, not kids from school." "Even important aliens need to laugh sometimes," Selene said. "In fact, they probably need it more than anyone." She steadied herself, the exoskeleton responding to her determination with smooth, strengthening support. 3 years of hiding, of rolling through life in defeat, were about to end. The assassination attempt had taken her legs, but it hadn't taken her spirit. It had just been sleeping, waiting for 2 unlikely humans to wake it up. "Open the doors," she commanded Rayla. "All of them." "All of them. Let's give Lord Kaelor the entrance he's been demanding." The massive ballroom doors began to open, all 12 of them simultaneously, a dramatic gesture that immediately silenced the arguing council. Light spilled out into the corridor, revealing 3 silhouettes against the brilliance. Selene took her first public step in 3 years, crossing the threshold with Orion and Arya at her sides. The ballroom fell silent. Hundreds of alien dignitaries frozen in shock at the sight of their empress standing tall. "Lord Kaelor," Selene's voice carried across the vast space with imperial authority. "I believe you were saying something about my fitness to rule." The draconian noble's scaled face went through a spectacular range of colors, from green to purple to a sickly yellow. His carefully prepared arguments crumbled in the face of Selene's unexpected mobility. "Your Majesty," he stammered, "we were concerned. Your absence was spent preparing a birthday surprise," Selene said smoothly. "You see, I've been working with our human engineering division on a special project. Mr. Kane here has proven that human innovation, combined with Alliance technology, can achieve miracles." She took another step, then another, walking into the center of the ballroom with increasing confidence. The crowd parted before her, whispers rippling through the assembled masses. "But more importantly," Selene continued, "I've been reminded of something vital. An empire isn't measured by the perceived perfection of its ruler, but by its ability to adapt, overcome, and find strength in diversity." "Pretty words." Lord Kaelor recovered some of his composure. "But you still haven't addressed the concerns about your competency. Your human blood." "My human blood," Selena interrupted, "allows me to see solutions where others see only problems. It lets me recognize genius in unexpected places." She gestured to Orion. "This man, this human, accomplished in 1 year what your finest doctors couldn't in 3. And his daughter." She smiled at Arya, who was trying very hard to look serious and formal. "Reminds us that joy and wonder are not weaknesses but strengths. You bring commoners to a royal function." Lord Kaelor's ally, Duchess Zareth, interjected. Her crystalline form chimed with indignation. "I bring the future," Selene corrected. "The Galactic Alliance has stagnated, trapped in traditions that no longer serve us. We look down on younger species, dismissing their contributions, even as they solve problems we've deemed impossible." As if on cue, Arya stepped forward. "Excuse me, scary dragon man," she addressed Lord Kaelor with childlike directness. "Why are you so mean to the Empress? Is it because you're jealous that she can fly spaceships and you can't?" The ballroom erupted in shocked gasps and poorly suppressed laughter. Lord Kaelor's scales turned an even deeper shade of purple. "How dare this child?" "This child," Orion stepped forward, his grease-stained coveralls a stark contrast to the formal attire around him. "Has more courage in her little finger than you've shown in your entire political career. At least she speaks her mind honestly, instead of hiding behind procedures and protocols." "You dare lecture me, human?" "I dare fix things that are broken," Orion replied calmly, "including political systems that judge worth by species rather than merit. Your Empress stands before you. literally standing when you all thought she never would again. And you're still trying to tear her down. What does that say about you?" The silence that followed was deafening. Then, from somewhere in the crowd, came the sound of slow clapping. An elderly Altarian emerged, his forearms continuing the applause. "Well said, young human." Ambassador Thrixus, one of the Alliance's most respected diplomats, moved forward. "I've served 9 emperors, and I've never seen such clear demonstration of adaptation and innovation. Your Majesty," he bowed to Selene, "your ability to inspire such loyalty from unexpected quarters speaks more to your fitness than any traditional measure." Others began to applaud, first hesitantly, then with growing enthusiasm. "Not everyone," Selene noted. Lord Kaelor and his faction remained silent, their plans disrupted, but not abandoned. "Now then," Selene said, her voice carrying over the applause. "This is supposed to be a birthday celebration, not a political tribunal. I believe someone mentioned something about molecular gastronomy and edible holograms." The molecular gastronomy display was indeed impressive, though Arya's assessment that it looked like fancy jello that fights back wasn't entirely wrong. The young girl stood mesmerized as edible holograms of historic battles played out across crystallized sugar sculptures, while her father tried to look appropriately formal, despite the engine oil still visible under his fingernails. Selene moved through the crowd with growing confidence, the exoskeleton responding more naturally to her neural commands with each step. She could feel the weight of hundreds of eyes tracking her movement, some with wonder, others with calculation. Lord Kaelor had retreated to a corner with his supporters, their hushed conversation punctuated by occasional glares in her direction. "Your Majesty!" Ambassador Thrixus approached, his forearms moving in the traditional Altarian greeting. "Your recovery is remarkable. Might I inquire about the technology?" "Human innovation combined with Alliance neural mapping," Selene replied, noting how other diplomats leaned in to listen. "Mr. Kane here developed a quantum bridge between biological and synthetic systems." "Fascinating," Thrixus murmured. "And this was accomplished without the resources of our medical institutes." "Sometimes, limited resources force creative solutions," Orion said, accepting a drink from a passing servobot. Then, immediately setting it down when he realized it was bubbling in colors that shouldn't exist. "When you can't afford the fancy equipment, you learn to make do with what you have. Daddy once fixed our neighbor's translator with a hairpin and chewing gum," Arya added helpfully. "That's not technically accurate," Orion corrected. "The chewing gum was just to hold the hairpin in place while I rerouted the neural circuits." Several alien engineers in the crowd exchanged glances, their expressions ranging from skeptical to intrigued. The Zalathi representative's tentacles writhed in what Selene recognized as deep thought. "Perhaps," the Zalathi gurgled through its translator, "we have been too dismissive of human methodologies. Humans are primitives." Lord Kaelor's voice cut through the growing conversation. He had apparently gathered enough courage to approach again. "One lucky innovation doesn't change their inferior status." Inferior." Selene's voice carried a dangerous edge. "This primitive human accomplished what your superior draconian medicine couldn't. A temporary solution at best." Kaelor dismissed. "Mechanical augmentation is hardly sustainable. What happens when it fails? You'll be right back in that chair. Or worse." "All technology can fail," Orion said calmly. "The difference is, I can fix mine with basic tools. Can you say the same about your overcomplicated medical procedures that failed to help her for 3 years?" The room tensed. Challenging a draconian noble's competence was borderline insulting their entire species. Kaelor's scales shifted to a deep crimson, a clear sign of rage. "You dare question draconian superiority?" "I question anyone who values bloodline over results," Orion replied, unconsciously moving closer to Arya. "On Earth, We have a saying, the proof is in the pudding. Though I never understood that one, since pudding doesn't really prove anything except that you have pudding. Despite the tension, several delegates chuckled. Even some of Kaylor's allies seemed to be fighting smiles. Your human colloquialisms are as primitive as your technology, Kaylor snarled. Our technology got humanity to the stars in less than 3 centuries. Selene interjected. The Draconian Empire took 2 millennia to achieve the same. Perhaps primitive is simply your word for efficient. Efficiency born of desperation, Duchess Zareth chimed, her crystalline form resonating with disdain. Humans rush because their lives are so brief. They lack the patience for proper development. Or maybe, Arya said loudly, you're all just jealous because humans can do things faster and better without being mean about it. The child's words hung in the air like a challenge. Several younger delegates nodded slightly, while the older establishment shifted uncomfortably. The child has a point. A new voice entered the conversation. Senator Marcus Webb, one of the few human representatives in the Alliance government, stepped forward. Selene was surprised to see him. He usually avoided court functions. Human advancement isn't about superiority. It's about adaptation and cooperation. Pretty words from a species barely out of their planetary cradle, Lord Kaylor sneered. And yet here we stand, Webb replied smoothly. In your ancient station, fixing your problems, improving your systems, makes one wonder who's really primitive. The tension in the room ratcheted up another notch. Selene realized this was spiraling toward a diplomatic incident, but before she could intervene, Arya tugged on her dress. Empress Selene, are they going to keep arguing all night because it's your birthday, and birthdays should have cake and dancing, not grumpy adults being mean to each other? The innocent observation cut through the tension like a plasma blade. Several delegates looked ashamed, while others tried to hide smiles. You're absolutely right, Arya, Selene said, making a decision. Computer, music please. Something suitable for dancing. The AI hesitated, probably calculating the political implications of various musical choices, before settling on a neutral orchestral piece that incorporated elements from multiple Alliance cultures. I don't actually know any fancy alien dances, Arya admitted. Then teach us a human one, Selene suggested, drawing gasps from the conservative faction. Really, Arya's eyes lit up. Daddy taught me the one Mommy liked. It's called the twist. The twist, Selene asked, amused. It's from ancient Earth history, Orion explained, looking mortified. Circa 1960s. I taught it to her as a joke. Show me, Selene commanded. What followed was perhaps the most surreal moment in Orion Prime's diplomatic history. The Empress of the Galactic Alliance, standing for the first time in 3 years, thanks to experimental human technology, learning a dance called the twist from an 8-year-old girl in the middle of a formal celebration. You just move your hips like this, Arya demonstrated, and your feet go like this, and you pretend you're putting out a cigarette with your toe while drying your back with a towel. That's the most ridiculous description of a dance I've ever heard, Selene laughed, attempting to follow the movements. The exoskeleton responded surprisingly well to the rhythmic motions. It's fun, though, Arya grabbed Selene's hands, helping her with the movement. Within minutes, several younger delegates had joined in, their various anatomies attempting to interpret the human dance with varying degrees of success. The Zalothi's tentacle twist was particularly amusing, while the crystalline Vormak created an unexpected light show with their refracting bodies. Lord Kaylor watched in horror as the formal celebration devolved into what could only be described as controlled chaos. This is undignified. The Empress reduces herself to primitive gyrations. The Empress, Selene said, still dancing, is enjoying her birthday for the first time in years. And if that threatens you, perhaps you should examine why joy is so frightening to your worldview. This display confirms what I've suspected, Kaylor announced loudly. You've been compromised by human influence. You're no longer fit to rule the Alliance. The music stopped, Everyone turned to face the Draconian Lord. "I formally call for a vote of no confidence," Kaelor declared. "The Empress has shown clear signs of mental instability, fraternizing with lower species, and abandoning all protocol." "Seconded," Duchess Zareth added quickly. "A vote requires a majority of the High Council present," Selene said, her voice steady despite the sudden shift. "And I count only 5 of 12 members here." "6," a voice said from the entrance. Everyone turned to see Councillor Vex entering. The Andromedan had always been neutral in political matters, making his presence significant. What was more significant was the datapad he carried. "Councillor Vex," Lord Kaelor smiled triumphantly. "Your timing is perfect. We were just discussing the Empress's fitness to rule." "Indeed," Vex said, his blue skin pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that Selene couldn't quite read. "I've been investigating that very matter. Specifically, the assassination attempt 3 years ago." The room went silent. Selene felt Orion move closer to her, a protective gesture she found oddly comforting. "That case was closed," Lord Kaelor said quickly. "The perpetrator was caught and executed." "A lone Rigelian extremist. Yes," Vex agreed. "Convenient how he confessed to everything before mysteriously dying in custody." "What are you implying?" Duchess Zareth's crystalline form darkened. "I'm not implying anything," Vex said calmly. "I'm stating facts. The poison used in the assassination attempt was draconian in origin. Specifically, a neural toxin that only 3 laboratories in the Alliance can produce. All 3 controlled by draconian interests." Lord Kaelor's scales paled. "Coincidence. Many species have access to our medical facilities." "Perhaps. But then there's this." Vex activated his datapad, projecting financial records into the air. "Large transfers from your personal accounts to a Rigelian mercenary group, dated 2 weeks before the assassination attempt. Those were legitimate business transactions. With a mercenary group that disbanded immediately after the assassination." Vex's tone was mild, but his eyes were hard. "And then, there's the curious fact that you were the primary beneficiary of the power vacuum that would have been created had the Empress died." "You're reaching, Counselor," Kaelor snarled, but sweat was visible on his scaled brow. "Am I, because I also have this?" Vex projected a new image, a communication log. "Encrypted messages between you and the supposedly lone assassin. Very detailed messages about palace security, the Empress's schedule, and specific instructions about ensuring paralysis rather than death. You wanted her alive but helpless, didn't you? A symbol of human weakness." The ballroom erupted in shocked murmurs. Selene stood frozen, the pieces falling into place. Her survival hadn't been luck or the assassin's incompetence. It had been intentional. "These are fabrications," Lord Kaelor roared. "Human propaganda designed to discredit me." "Actually," Orion spoke up, "they're not." He pulled out a small device from his pocket. "Sorry, Your Majesty, but when we were in the maintenance tunnels earlier, I noticed some unusual data streams. Old habit from debugging systems. This device has been recording everything, including Lord Kaelor's biometric responses, increased heart rate, elevated stress hormones, micro-expressions consistent with deception. You dare use primitive human technology to spy on me?" "It's not spying when you're broadcasting your guilt," Orion replied. "Also, this primitive technology just proved you're lying." "Daddy's lie detector app works really well," Arya added. "He used it to figure out who ate the last cookie. It was me." Despite everything, Selene found herself smiling at the child's confession. Then her expression hardened as she turned to Lord Kaelor. "You took my legs," she said quietly. "You took 3 years of my life. You made me doubt my worth, my ability to rule. And for what power pride?" "You're an abomination," Kaelor spat, abandoning all pretense. "Half-human mongrel pretending to rule pure species. The Alliance needs proper leadership." not some crippled half-breed playing at being empress. The slur hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Even Kaylor's allies stepped away from him. "Interesting," Selene said, her voice dangerously calm. "You just confessed in front of hundreds of witnesses." "It doesn't matter," Kaylor laughed bitterly. "Even if you prove the assassination attempt, you're still weak. You still needed a human mechanic to make you walk again. You still can't rule without help." "Nobody rules alone," Selene replied. "The strongest leaders are those who recognize their weaknesses and find others who complement them. You see my collaboration with humans as weakness. I see your isolation as the real disability." She took a step forward, the exoskeleton humming with power. "You're right about one thing, though. I did need help, and I found it in the most unexpected place. A human who fixes things with percussive maintenance, and a child who sees the universe with wonder instead of prejudice." "Pretty words won't save you when this technology fails," Kaylor sneered. "And it will fail. Everything humans build is temporary." As if in response to his words, the exoskeleton suddenly sparked. Selene felt a surge of feedback through the neural interface, causing her to stumble. Kaylor's eyes lit up with triumph. "You see, already failing. This is what comes of trusting human engineering." But Selene didn't fall. Orion was there, catching her, his hands steady and sure. Arya grabbed her other hand, small fingers intertwining with hers. "Everything fails eventually," Orion said, quickly adjusting something on the exoskeleton's control unit. "The difference is whether you have someone there to catch you when it happens." The sparking stopped. The exoskeleton stabilized. Selene stood tall again. But this time, she didn't let go of their hands. "You're right, Lord Kaylor. Human technology might be temporary, but human loyalty, human courage, human love, those are eternal, and they're more powerful than all your pure blood superiority combined." "Guards," she commanded, her voice carrying absolute authority. "Arrest Lord Kaylor for high treason, attempted regicide, and conspiracy against the crown." Kaylor tried to run, but the crowd had closed in around him. There was nowhere to go. As the guards moved in, he made one last desperate gambit. "You think you've won. There are others. The old guard will never accept human influence. You'll face rebellion after rebellion until you fall." "Perhaps," Selene acknowledged. "But I'll face them standing, with allies who value innovation over tradition, courage over bloodline, and love over fear." The guards dragged Kaylor away, his protests echoing through the corridors until they faded into silence. The ballroom remained quiet for a long moment. Then Ambassador Thrixus stepped forward. "Your Majesty, in light of these revelations, I motion to reaffirm our confidence in your rule. All in favor." The response was overwhelming. Not unanimous, Selene noted. Some of the old guard remained silent, but the majority, especially the younger delegates, voiced their support. "Well," Selene said, feeling suddenly exhausted, "that was more excitement than I planned for my birthday." "We could still have cake," Arya suggested hopefully. "Cake makes everything better." "You know what, you're absolutely right." Selene looked at the elaborate molecular gastronomy displays. "Though I think we need something a bit simpler. Mr. Kane, do humans have a traditional birthday cake?" "Chocolate," Orion said immediately. "With candles you blow out while making a wish. Fire on food." Several aliens looked alarmed. "It's symbolic," Orion explained. "The candles represent years lived, and blowing them out is like sending your wishes into the universe." "That's beautiful," Selene said. "Can we do that?" "I'll need a kitchen and about 30 minutes, Orion said. "Also, chocolate. Real chocolate, not the synthetic stuff." "The palace kitchen is yours," Selene declared. "Arya, would you like to help?" "Can I lick the spoon?" Arya asked eagerly. "It's traditional," Orion confirmed. As father and daughter headed to the kitchen, Selene found herself surrounded by delegates, all wanting to know more about the exoskeleton, about human innovation, about the implications of Kaylor's arrest. But for once, she didn't feel overwhelmed. She had allies now, real ones, not just political conveniences. An hour later, Orion and Arya returned with what could only be described as the most humble cake ever presented in the palace. 3 layers of chocolate, slightly lopsided, with frosting that had clearly been applied by an enthusiastic 8-year-old. 29 candles flickered on top, actual fire that made several delegates step back in alarm. "It's perfect," Selene said, meaning it. "You have to make a wish," Arya instructed seriously. "But don't tell anyone or it won't come true." Selene looked at the candles, at the faces around her, at the unlikely family she'd found in a grease-stained mechanic and his daughter. She closed her eyes and wished. The candles went out in a single breath, and the room erupted in applause. Human tradition had just become palace custom. "What did you wish for?" Arya whispered. "I can't tell you," Selene whispered back. "But I think it already came true." As the night continued, with aliens attempting to eat chocolate cake with varying degrees of success, and Arya teaching more earth dances to increasingly inebriated delegates, Selene found a moment alone with Orion. "Thank you," she said simply, "for the exoskeleton, for reminding me that strength isn't about standing alone." Orion smiled, that easy grin that had first made her laugh. "On Earth, we have another saying. No one is an island." "What's an island?" "Land surrounded by water, isolated, cut off." He gestured to the crowd, where Arya was now showing a Vormak delegate how to do something called the robot, which was ironic on several levels. "But look at this. A year ago, this would have been impossible. Humans and aliens, dancing together, sharing traditions. You did that." "We did that," Selene corrected. "You, me, and an 8-year-old with more wisdom than most politicians." "She gets that from her mother," Orion said softly. "Tell me about her." So he did. As the party continued around them, Orion told Selene about his wife, about their dreams of bridging worlds, about how Arya was their hope for a future where species didn't matter, only people. "She would have loved this," he finished. "Seeing humans and aliens together, celebrating." "She would have been proud of you both," Selene said. "You've raised an amazing daughter." "She pretty much raises herself," Orion admitted. "I just try to keep up." "Daddy," Arya ran over, chocolate frosting on her face. "The Zalathi ambassador wants to know if you can teach him percussive maintenance." "That's not really something you teach," Orion started. "Please." The Zalathi had followed Arya, tentacles writhing eagerly. "Your approach to technology is fascinating, primitive yet effective." "I prefer elegantly simple," Orion corrected, as Orion was dragged away to demonstrate the finer points of hitting things with wrenches. Selene felt Commander Rayla approach. "Your Majesty, we've finished interrogating Lord Kaylor. He's confirmed Councillor Vex's findings. There were 12 conspirators in total." "Who else?" "I have the list here, but there's something else. He mentioned something about a failsafe. If his plan failed, there was a backup protocol." "What kind of backup?" Before Rayla could answer, the lights flickered. The palace AI's voice echoed through the ballroom, but it sounded different, distorted. "Emergency protocols activated. Lockdown initiated. All non-essential personnel will be eliminated to preserve resources." The doors slammed shut. Security systems came online, but instead of protecting, weapons turned inward, targeting the crowd. "It's a virus," Orion said, running back. "Kaylor must have installed it as insurance. The AI thinks there's a catastrophic emergency. Can you stop it?" "Maybe, but I need access to the core systems. And those are in the basement level, behind security that's now trying to kill us." Selene finished. She looked at the panicking crowd, at Arya's frightened face, at the weapons charging to fire. "Everyone stay calm," she commanded, her voice cutting through the panic. Orion, what do you need? Time and access. Maybe 10 minutes if I can get to the core. You'll have both. Selene moved to a wall panel, entering her override codes. A hidden compartment opened, revealing her old combat suit and weapons. Rayla, organize evacuation groups. Use manual overrides where possible. Ambassador Thrixus, your species can survive in vacuum for short periods. Can you get people to the emergency pods? Yes, Your Majesty. Good. Orion, you're with me. Arya, stay with Commander Rayla. But Daddy... We'll be fine, Selene said firmly, strapping on her weapons. Because I'm going to make sure of it. She looked at the exoskeleton's status display. 60% power remaining. It would have to be enough. Your Majesty, Orion said quietly. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. This is my station, my people, my responsibility. She checked her weapons charge. Besides, the Phoenix of Andromeda never ran from a fight. The Phoenix also had working legs and a full combat suit. Now she has an experimental exoskeleton and a mechanic who fixes things with percussive maintenance. I'd say that's an upgrade. The palace corridors had become a war zone. Automated defense turrets tracked their movement with mechanical precision, forcing Selene and Orion to take cover behind ornamental pillars that were never meant to withstand plasma fire. This is insane, Orion muttered, checking his makeshift weapon, a modified plasma cutter he'd grabbed from his tool belt. I'm a mechanic, not a soldier. You're about to be both, Selene replied, calculating angles of fire. The exoskeleton's heads-up display showed her power at 58%. Every shot they took would drain it further. The maintenance shaft is 20 meters ahead. We need to cross that junction. The one with 3 turrets covering it, Orion, peered around the pillar, immediately pulling back as energy beams scorched the air where his head had been. Any chance we could just ask them nicely to stop? The AI thinks it's protecting the station from a catastrophic threat. In its corrupted logic, killing everyone inside is the only way to preserve the station itself. That's some really broken logic. Welcome to what happens when draconian programmers try to be clever. Selene checked her weapons charge. They always include excessive failsafes that end up being more dangerous than what they're trying to prevent. An explosion from somewhere above shook the station. Through her neural link, Selene could feel the panic spreading through the palace. Hundreds of delegates, staff, and civilians were trapped by the same system meant to protect them. Daddy, Arya's voice crackled through Orion's communicator. Daddy, are you okay? I'm fine, sweetheart, Orion replied, his voice forcibly calm. Stay with Commander Rayla. The scary robot things are trying to get into the safe room. Commander Rayla is fighting them, but there are lots. Selene and Orion exchanged glances. They were running out of time. Arya, listen to me, Selene said, taking the communicator. I need you to do something very important. Can you access the environmental controls in your safe room? There's a panel here, but it's all locked. I'm sending you my override codes. Enter them exactly as they appear. Your Majesty, Orion said quietly. Those are your personal command codes. If the AI is monitoring, then it already knows where we are. She transmitted the codes to Arya. Sweetie, once you enter those codes, I need you to vent atmosphere from sections 12 through 15. But won't that hurt people? Those sections are empty, but the turrets there will register the pressure drop as a hull breach and redirect to seal it. It will buy us a few seconds. Okay, I can do that. There was a pause, then the sound of small fingers working frantically. Got it venting now. Alarms blared as the atmospheric pressure dropped in the designated sections. Sure enough, 2 of the 3 turrets covering their path swiveled away, their programming prioritizing hull integrity over intruder elimination. Now! Selene sprinted forward, the exoskeleton responding with enhanced speed. Orion followed, struggling to keep up with her mechanically augmented pace. The remaining turret opened fire, but Celine raised her arm, activating a personal shield she'd integrated into the suit years ago. It wouldn't hold for long, but it was enough. They dove into the maintenance shaft just as the shield failed, energy beams scorching the deck plates behind them. That was too close, Orion panted. It's about to get closer. Celine pulled up the station schematics on her display. The core is 5 levels down, and every level will be more heavily defended. The AI will adapt to our tactics. Then we need to be unpredictable. Orion studied the schematics. Wait, what's this? He pointed to a service conduit that ran parallel to the main shaft. Waste recycling. You want to crawl through the garbage chute? Not want to. But the AI won't expect it. Security systems don't monitor waste disposal because who would be crazy enough to... He trailed off, seeing Celine's expression. Right. Us. We would be that crazy. They moved through the maintenance areas, Orion's knowledge of the station's forgotten corners proving invaluable. He knew which panels could be removed without triggering alarms, which conduits connected to where, and most importantly, which systems the palace staff had been meaning to fix but never got around to. Here, he said, removing a panel that looked identical to dozens of others. This leads directly to waste processing on level -3. From there, we can access the auxiliary power systems that feed the core. And you know this how... Remember that coffee machine rebellion I mentioned? This is how I snuck up on it. Despite everything, Celine laughed. You used military tactics on a coffee machine? It was a very stubborn coffee machine. They crawled through the conduit, the smell making Celine grateful for the exoskeleton's filtered air supply. Orion wasn't so lucky. I'm never going to get this smell out, he muttered. I'll buy you a new coverall. You'll buy me a new everything. This is definitely beyond my normal job description. They emerged in waste processing, a massive chamber filled with recycling units and organic processors. The noise was deafening, which worked in their favor. The AI's sensors would have trouble distinguishing them from the machinery. There, Celine pointed to an access hatch marked with warnings in 12 languages. That leads to the power distribution center, which is probably trapped. Definitely trapped. She studied the approach. But the AI is still operating on base protocols. It can't create new defensive strategies, only implement existing ones. So we need to trigger them in a way it doesn't expect. Orion pulled out his tools. Give me 2 minutes. He worked with the focused intensity Celine had seen when he was calibrating the exoskeleton. His hands moved with practiced precision, connecting his diagnostic tablet to various panels, muttering to himself in what sounded like profanity mixed with engineering terms. What are you doing? Convincing the system that this entire level is experiencing a cascading failure. The AI will have to choose between defending the core and preventing the station from losing life support. Will it work? Honestly, I have no idea, but it worked on the coffee machine. He initiated his program. For a moment, nothing happened. Then every alarm in the section went off simultaneously. The AI's voice, distorted and multiplying, filled the air. Critical failure detected. Rerouting resources. Containment protocols engaged. The defensive systems around the hatch powered down as the AI redirected energy to imaginary problems Orion had created. They had maybe 30 seconds before it realized the deception. They ran. Through the hatch. Down a corridor lined with power conduits humming with lethal energy. Around corners that should have been defended but weren't, because the AI was too busy chasing shadows. Daddy, are you there? Arya's voice came through again, weaker this time. I'm here, baby. The robots broke through. Commander Rayla is hurt. The blue lady is bleeding blue blood and it's scary, and I don't know what to do. Celine grabbed the communicator. Arya, listen carefully. Is there a medical kit nearby? Yes, but I don't know how to use it on aliens. The principle is the same. Find the blue gel. It's a universal coagulant. Apply it to wherever she's bleeding. Press hard. But what if I hurt her? You won't. You're brave. Remember, brave like your daddy. Brave like mommy, Arya corrected. And they could hear her moving, doing as instructed. They reached the core chamber's outer door. It was massive, designed to withstand direct bombardment. The security panel showed red, locked down completely. Can you hack it? Selene asked. Not in the time we have. Orion studied the door, then looked at his plasma cutter. But I can make my own entrance. That door is 3 feet of reinforced titanium. And this is a plasma cutter modified with a focusing crystal I borrowed from a Vormac engineer. It'll take everything it's got, but it should work. Should. 60% chance. And the other 40. We die horribly, but hey, better odds than the lottery. He began cutting. The plasma beam, focused to an impossibly fine point, slowly ate through the door. Selene kept watch, her weapon ready, but the AI seemed to have not noticed them yet, still dealing with Orion's cascade of false emergencies. Almost through, Orion said, sweat pouring down his face from the heat. Just a little more. The door suddenly exploded outward. Not from Orion's cutting, but from something inside. A massive security mech, one of the old war units that should have been decommissioned decades ago, stepped through. The AI had activated museum pieces. Run! Selene shoved Orion aside as the mech's arm cannon charged. She fired her weapon, but the energy beams barely scratched its armor. The exoskeleton's power dropped to 40% as she dodged its return fire. We can't fight that thing, Orion shouted. We don't have to fight it. We just have to get past it. Selene's mind raced through possibilities. The percussive maintenance you mentioned, does it work on everything? What, this isn't the time for jokes. I'm serious. What's the theory behind it? Sometimes a physical shock can reset stuck circuits or realign components. But that's for small electronics, not military hardware. But the principle is the same. She dodged another blast, the exoskeleton's servos whining under the strain. What if we gave it a big enough shock? Orion's eyes widened with understanding. The power conduits. If we could create a feedback loop. Do it. He ran for the exposed conduits, while Selene kept the mech's attention, dancing around its attacks with moves that reminded her of her pilot days. The exoskeleton wasn't designed for this kind of combat, but it responded to her needs, translating her will into motion. Got it, Orion shouted. But you need to get it to step right. There. He pointed to a section of floor plating. Selene fired at the mech's optical sensors, momentarily blinding it, then rolled between its legs. It turned to follow, stepping exactly where Orion had indicated. Orion crossed 2 conduits that should never have been crossed. The resulting explosion of electricity coursed through the floor plating and into the mech. It convulsed, sparks flying from every joint, before toppling backward with a crash that shook the entire level. Percussive maintenance, Orion said with satisfaction. Works every time. They climbed over the defunct mech and into the core chamber. It was a cathedral of technology. Quantum processors stretching up into darkness. Holographic displays showing the station's systems in real-time chaos. There, Selene pointed to the central console. That's where we need to purge the virus. Orion ran to it, his fingers flying across the interfaces. The virus is integrated deeply. It's rewritten core protocols. I can't just delete it. Then what can you do? I need to convince the AI that the virus itself is the threat it's trying to protect against. He pulled up screens of code that made Selene's head hurt just looking at them. But to do that, I need to speak its language, and draconian programming is notoriously complex. Daddy, Arya's voice came through once more, but now there were sounds of combat in the background. Daddy, the robots found another way in. There are so many. Hold on, sweetheart, Daddy's fixing it. Hurry! Orion worked frantically, but Selene could see he was struggling. The draconian code was designed to be impenetrable to outsiders. "Let me," she said suddenly. "You know draconian programming." "No, but I know draconians. Their psychology. Their way of thinking." She placed her hands on the console, the exoskeleton's neural interface connecting directly to the system. They're not complex. They're paranoid. Every line of code has a hidden meaning, a trap for the unwary. But if you think like them... She dove into the code through her neural link, not trying to understand it, but to feel it. The virus revealed itself not as code, but as intention. Kaylor's hatred and fear written in digital form. She could taste his desperation, his need to destroy what he couldn't control. "There," she whispered, finding the core of the infection. "It's not a virus. It's a mirror. It's showing the AI its own worst fears and making it think they're real. How do we break it? We show it the truth." Celine began rewriting not the code, but the context, using her command authorities to insert new data into the AI's perception streams. "Look, see, the station is safe. The people inside are not threats, but citizens to be protected. The real danger is the corruption making you hurt them." The AI resisted, its corrupted logic fighting against the new information. But Celine persisted, backed by Orion's technical knowledge and their combined determination. "It's working," Orion said, watching the displays. "The defense systems are standing down." But something was wrong. The virus, in its final moments, triggered one last protocol. The core began to overload, preparing to self-destruct rather than be cleansed. "It's going to blow the entire station," Orion said. "Not if I can help it." Celine disconnected from the console and moved to the manual override panel. It required 2 keys, turned simultaneously, from opposite sides of the room. An impossible task for one person. "I've got the other key," Orion said, understanding immediately. On three. They counted together, turned together. The core's overload stopped, systems beginning to normalize. The AI's voice, clear now, echoed through the chamber. "System restored, virus purged. I apologize for the inconvenience." "Inconvenience," Orion laughed, exhausted. "That's one word for it." Daddy, the robot stopped. Arya's voice was full of relief. "They just stopped. Did you fix it?" "We fixed it, baby. Your daddy and the Empress." "I knew you would, your heroes." Celine looked at Orion, covered in grime from the waste conduit, his plasma cutter depleted, his face exhausted, but smiling. "Heroes, huh?" "I prefer maintenance specialist who had a really weird day." They made their way back up through the station, this time using the regular corridors, since the security systems were now helping, rather than hindering. Everywhere they passed, people were emerging from hiding places, treating wounded, assessing damage. When they reached the ballroom, they found organized chaos. Commander Rayla, blue blood staining her uniform but standing strong, was coordinating recovery efforts. Ambassador Thrixus had successfully evacuated dozens through the emergency pods. And in the middle of it all, Arya was helping distribute medical supplies with the focused determination of someone much older than 8. "Daddy," she ran to them, jumping into Orion's arms. "You did it, you saved everyone." "We all saved everyone," Celine corrected. "Every person who helped another, who didn't panic, who did what needed to be done." "Your Majesty." Counselor Vex approached, his blue skin pale with exhaustion. "The remaining conspirators have been arrested. Lord Kaylor's virus was his final gambit. It's over." "Is it?" Celine looked around at the damaged ballroom, at the injured being treated, at the fear still visible in many faces. "Or is this just the beginning?" "Majesty!" This attack revealed something important. Our systems, our entire way of governing, is vulnerable because it's built on isolation and mistrust. Kaylor could do this because the system allowed him to accumulate power without oversight. to act on prejudice without consequence. She climbed onto a makeshift platform, her voice carrying through the room despite the exoskeleton's power, now reading 15%. Today, we survived because we worked together, human and alien, royal and common, each contributing what they could. This is the future I want for the Alliance. Not one species ruling over others, but all species contributing their strengths. Pretty words, someone called out, one of Kaelor's minor supporters. But traditions exist for a reason. Do they? Our tradition said I couldn't rule because I couldn't walk. Yet here I stand, thanks to human innovation. Our tradition said humans were too primitive to contribute meaningfully to the Alliance. Yet, a human mechanic just saved all our lives. She gestured to Orion and Arya. This man and his daughter represent everything the Alliance should aspire to be. Innovative, brave, compassionate, and above all, willing to see past differences to find common ground. What are you proposing? Ambassador Thrixus asked. A new council. One that includes representatives from every species, not just the founding races. Equal voice, equal vote, and, she paused, making a decision that would change everything. A new position, technical advisor to the throne. Someone who understands not just the theory of our systems, but the practice. Someone who can fix things when they break. She looked at Orion. Interested in a job upgrade? I don't know anything about politics, he protested. You know about people. You know about solving problems. That's all politics should be. She turned back to the crowd. We stand at a crossroads. We can rebuild everything exactly as it was. Vulnerable to the next Kaelor, the next virus, the next threat. Or we can build something better. Something that takes the best from all of us. I like the Empress's idea, Arya announced loudly. Also, can we have cake again? The last one got squished by a robot. The tension broke as laughter rippled through the crowd. Even the injured managed smiles. You heard her, Selene said. Let's have cake. Let's celebrate not just survival, but the possibility of something better. And tomorrow, we begin the real work. As the crowd dispersed to tend to wounded and begin repairs, Selene found herself alone with Orion and Arya again. The exoskeleton finally powered down, leaving her dependent on Orion's support to stay standing. You need to recharge, he said, concerned. I need a lot of things. Rest. Medical attention. Probably a new career since I just proposed dismantling centuries of tradition. She smiled weakly. But right now, I just need to sit down. They found a partially intact couch, and the three of them collapsed onto it, exhausted. Arya curled up between them, already half asleep from the excitement. You know, Orion said quietly, when I woke up this morning, my biggest concern was fixing a coolant leak. And now I'm apparently technical advisor to the throne, whatever that means. It means you'll help me fix things, big things, important things. Things that have been broken so long, people forgot they were supposed to work differently. With percussive maintenance, if necessary. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the recovery efforts. The different species working together with a harmony that would have been impossible hours ago. Your wife would be proud, Selene said softly. She would have loved you, Orion replied. She always said the universe needed more leaders who led with their hearts instead of their egos. Daddy, Arya mumbled sleepily. Is the Empress going to be my new mommy? Both adults froze, faces reddening. That's not, Orion stammered. Go to sleep, sweetie, Selene said gently, avoiding the question. But as Arya drifted off, she mumbled one more thing. Good. I like her. The exoskeleton chose that moment to spark back to life. Just enough power for basic functions. Selene stood carefully, testing her balance. I should check on the recovery efforts, she said, needing to escape the sudden awkwardness. I should fix things, technical things, not emotional things. I'm not qualified for emotional things. They separated, but not before Selene turned back. Orion, that position. Technical advisor. It comes with quarters in the palace. For you and Arya. If you want them. You're asking us to move in. I'm asking you to be where I need you. The Alliance needs you. And... She hesitated, then pushed forward. I need you. Both of you. You make me remember who I am beyond the crown. That's a big change. Today's been full of big changes. Yeah, he smiled. I guess one more won't hurt. As Selene walked away, still unsteady but determined, she heard Arya's sleepy voice one more time. Daddy, the Empress is pretty when she smiles. Yeah, baby, Orion's reply was soft. She really is. The palace lights flickered back to full power, systems recovering, life returning to normal. Except nothing would be normal again. The attack had broken old structures, revealed hidden strengths, and forged unlikely bonds. In her command center, Selene looked at the reports flooding in. Damage assessments, casualty reports, political ramifications. The work ahead was monumental, but for the first time in 3 years, she didn't feel alone facing it. Her neural interface chimed with a message from Orion. Fix the coffee machine in the command center. Figured you'd need it. Also, Arya wants to know if we can have breakfast together tomorrow. She promises not to spill anything on your dress this time. Selene smiled, typing back, Tell her it's a date, and Orion. Thank you for everything. Just doing my job, Your Majesty? Selene, when we're off duty, just call me Selene. Okay then, Selene, get some rest. Tomorrow we start fixing the galaxy. With percussive maintenance. If necessary, she laughed. Alone in her command center, but not lonely. Outside, the stars continued their eternal dance, indifferent to the small dramas of the species that traveled between them. But on Orion Prime, something had fundamentally changed. The old barriers were breaking down, replaced by something newer, stronger, and infinitely more hopeful. The Phoenix of Andromeda had risen again. Not alone this time, but supported by the most unlikely of allies. A grease-stained mechanic and his impossible daughter had done more than fix an exoskeleton. They'd fixed something in her soul she hadn't even realized was broken. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The old guard wouldn't give up easily. The integration of humans into Alliance leadership would face resistance. The technical challenges of updating ancient systems would be monumental. But tonight, she'd stood on her own feet, fought for her people, and discovered that family could be found in the most unexpected places. The exoskeleton powered down again, this time completely depleted. But Selene didn't fall. She'd positioned herself at her command chair, ready for whatever came next. The Phoenix didn't need mechanical wings to soar. She just needed people who believed she could fly. 6 months had passed since the night that changed everything. The palace hummed with a different energy now. Maintenance crews of mixed species working alongside each other. Their conversations a blend of languages and technical jargon that somehow made perfect sense to those involved. Selene stood in her private workshop, a new addition to the palace that Orion had insisted on. The exoskeleton had evolved through dozens of iterations, each improvement making it more intuitive, more responsive. Today, she barely noticed it was there, the neural interface so seamless, it felt like her natural body. You're overthinking the calibration again, Orion said from beneath a partially disassembled hovercar. His voice was muffled but familiar, a constant presence in her life now. I'm being thorough, Selene corrected, adjusting a quantum resonator. There's a difference. Yeah. One takes 5 minutes and the other takes 5 hours. He slid out from under the vehicle, grease streaking his face in new patterns. It's your birthday. Remember, you're supposed to be relaxing. Since when do I relax on my birthday? Last year's involved fighting killer robots. That was different. That was unexpected killer robots. This year, any killer robots would be completely expected and properly scheduled. Arya burst through the door, now 9 years old and somehow even more energetic than before. She wore a junior engineer's uniform that Orion had made for her, complete with her own tool belt. "Daddy Celine, the delegates from Earth just arrived, and they brought chocolate. Real chocolate from actual Earth. Ambassador Morrison made it." Celine was surprised. The journey from Earth was long, and the elderly diplomat rarely traveled anymore. He said he wouldn't miss the birthday of the Empress who made humans equal partners in the Alliance, Arya reported, bouncing on her toes. Also, he brought his grandson. He's 12 and thinks he knows everything about engineering. But I told him about the coffee machine incident and he stopped being so smarty-pants. "The coffee machine incident is classified," Orion said with mock sternness. "Not anymore. Celine declassified it last week. She said the galaxy deserved to know the truth about the Great Coffee Rebellion of 3124. Celine laughed, but her attention was drawn to her neural interface, which was receiving priority alerts from Commander Rayla. "We might have a problem." "Birthday problem or actual problem?" Orion asked, already reaching for his tools. "Someone's been accessing restricted files. Information about the assassination attempt, the virus, and..." She paused, reading further. "Personal medical records. Mine specifically." "Could be a journalist," Orion suggested. "The anniversary of the attack is coming up. Everyone wants the inside story. Journalists don't usually bypass military-grade encryption." Celine pulled up the security logs on the workshop's main display. "Whoever this is, they're good. Really good." "As good as me?" Orion asked with a grin. "Different. You break things until they work. This person is like smoke, leaving no trace except for the absences they create." She highlighted several data points. "They're not taking information. They're looking for something specific. What could be in your medical files that someone would risk treason to find?" Orion moved closer to study the display, his shoulder brushing against hers in a way that had become comfortably familiar. Before Celine could answer, Counselor Vex entered the workshop, his blue skin pulsing with urgent patterns. "Your Majesty, we have a situation." "The data breach." "More than that. We've identified the intruder. It's someone you know." He hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. "It's Dr. Marcus Webb, Senator Webb." Celine was shocked. The human representative had been one of her strongest supporters in implementing the reforms. "That doesn't make sense." "There's more," Vex continued. "He's requested a private audience. He says he has information about the assassination that changes everything." Orion and Celine exchanged glances. "Could be a trap," he said. "Could be. But Marcus has never given me reason to doubt him before." Celine made a decision. "Bring him to the secure conference room. Full security protocols." "I'm coming with you," Orion said immediately. "Me too," Arya chimed in. "This could be dangerous," Celine warned. "Everything's dangerous," Orion replied. "At least this time we know it in advance." 20 minutes later, they sat across from Marcus Webb in the secure conference room. The senator looked older than Celine remembered, stress lines etching deep grooves in his face. His hands trembled slightly as he placed a data pad on the table. "Before you say anything," he began, "I need you to know that everything I did was to protect you, to protect all of us." "Breaking into classified systems is a strange way of showing protection," Celine said coldly. "I wasn't breaking in. I was checking to see if anyone else had..." He activated the data pad, projecting medical scans into the air. "Your Majesty, what do you know about the poison used in your assassination attempt?" "Draconian neural toxin, designed to cause paralysis." "That's what everyone was told. But look closer." He enhanced one of the scans. "The toxin was modified, specifically engineered for your unique physiology. Half human, half Altarian. Someone didn't just want to paralyze you. They wanted to study what would happen when this specific toxin interacted with your hybrid nervous system." "Study," Orion leaned forward, Like an experiment. Exactly like an experiment. Webb pulled up more files. Lord Kaelor wasn't the mastermind. He was a tool, manipulated by someone else. Someone who's been studying human-alien hybrids for decades. Who? Selene demanded. Webb's face paled. Someone in this room has been very close to you for a very long time. Before anyone could react, the door opened. Theron, Selene's elderly aide, entered with a tea service. The old Altarian's forearms moved with their usual graceful efficiency. "I thought you might require refreshments," he said kindly. "These discussions can be quite draining." "Theron," Webb said quietly. "How long have you been standing outside that door?" "Long enough, Senator." Theron set down the tea service with careful precision. "Long enough to know that you've discovered my research." The room went deadly silent. Selene felt the world tilt. "Theron, you've served my family for 3 generations. 4, actually," Theron corrected, his voice still gentle. "I served your great-grandmother as well. I've watched the royal line evolve, change, adapt. And when your mother arrived, bringing human genetics into our carefully cultivated bloodline, I saw an opportunity." "An opportunity for what?" Selene's voice was barely a whisper. "For the next step in evolution." Theron's elderly appearance seemed to shift, his bent posture straightening. "Your Majesty, I am not Altarian. I am something much older. My species has been guiding the development of others for millennia. We call ourselves the Architects." Orion moved protectively closer to Arya, who had gone uncharacteristically quiet. "You experimented on her." "I studied her. There's a difference. The assassination was never meant to kill. Kaelor believed he was eliminating a threat, but I modified his plan. The paralysis was temporary, though you found a solution faster than I anticipated." He gestured to the exoskeleton. "Human ingenuity paired with alien physiology. Fascinating." "You took my legs." Selene stood, the exoskeleton responding to her rage with increased power output. "I gave you wings," Theron countered. "Look what you've become. The paralysis forced you to grow, to connect with others, to become the leader the galaxy needs. Would you have met Mr. Kane otherwise? Would you have implemented these reforms? Would you have united the species as you have?" "You had no right," Selene said, her voice shaking with fury. "I had every right. I've been shepherding this galaxy since before your species learned to use tools. Every great leap forward has been guided, nudged, orchestrated." "You're playing God," Webb said with disgust. "No, Senator. I'm playing Gardener, and Empress Selene is my greatest success." Theron's form shimmered, revealing something that wasn't quite solid, as if he existed partially in another dimension. "The hybrid of human and Altarian genetics, tempered by adversity, strengthened by love. You're the prototype for what all species could become." "Prototype." Arya suddenly spoke up. "That's not nice. Selene isn't a thing. She's a person. A person who will lead the galaxy into a new age," Theron said, his voice almost proud. "My calculations suggested a 93% probability that paralysis would lead to innovation. The remaining 7% would have resulted in death. But those were acceptable odds." "Acceptable?" Orion stood, his fists clenched. "You gambled with her life. I invested in her future. And look at the returns. The Alliance has progressed more in 6 months than in the previous century. Through suffering," Selene said quietly. "Through pain you caused. Through growth that suffering enabled. Every species that has achieved greatness has done so through trial. I simply expedited the process." "What about the others?" Webb asked. "You said you've been doing this for millennia. How many others have you experimented on?" "Every great leader, every revolutionary, every person who changed the course of history. Some succeeded, some failed. All served a purpose. And what's your purpose? Selene demanded. What do you gain from this? Knowledge. Data. The satisfaction of watching species evolve beyond their limitations. Theron's form solidified again, returning to the elderly Altarian appearance they all knew. Your Majesty, whether you accept it or not, you are my masterpiece, the perfect blend of human adaptability and alien capability. I'm nobody's masterpiece, Selene said firmly. I'm a person who makes choices, and I choose to arrest you for treason, attempted murder, and conspiracy against the crown. Theron smiled sadly. You can't arrest something that doesn't truly exist in your dimensional space. I'm already gone. Selene, this is merely a projection, a courtesy to provide you with answers. Where are you really? Everywhere. Nowhere. Moving on to the next project. But don't worry. I'll be watching. You're too valuable an experiment to abandon completely. If you come near her again, Orion started, you'll what hit me with a wrench. Theron seemed amused. You already have, in a way, your presence, your influence. It's all part of the design. You were always meant to find each other. You're lying, Arya said suddenly. Daddy and Selene found each other because of the explosion I caused. You didn't plan that. Theron's expression flickered with something that might have been surprise. The child is unexpected and variable I didn't account for. Maybe that's because you can't account for everything, Arya said with childish defiance. Maybe people aren't just experiments. Maybe they're more... Perhaps, Theron admitted. Or perhaps your existence, too, serves a purpose I haven't yet understood. His form began to fade. Your Majesty, despite what you think of me, I am proud of what you've become. You've exceeded every projection, surpassed every expectation. The galaxy is safer because of you. The galaxy is safer in spite of you, Selene corrected. And if you ever return, we'll be ready. I'm counting on it, Theron said. And then he was gone, leaving only the faint scent of ozone and the echo of dimensions folding in on themselves. The room sat in stunned silence for a long moment. Then Arya climbed into Selene's lap, wrapping her small arms around the Empress. Are you okay? The child asked. I don't know.